Welcome students to today's program. The topic of the day is freedom and discipline. The objectives of the lesson are understanding the concept of freedom, understanding the concept of discipline, understanding the importance of discipline in social life. Introduction to freedom. The concept of freedom and discipline are very important for all, especially for parents and teachers to understand. It is the proper understanding of these two basic ideas than any other which ultimately helps us and determines the degree to which we are able to support children's growth, development and understanding. These basic concepts determine the way we live, develop our relationships and become a part of development, be it national or global. It affects how we prepare our environment, our day-to-day matters, interactions with children and even our happiness in our own work. Understanding freedom and discipline demands that we examine the social, emotional and cognitive reasons for why we make the choices we do. The concept of freedom. What is freedom? Some define freedom as lack of attachment. Freedom means you get to do whatever you want. Freedom is something without a constraint or a limitation. A complete freedom then means that one can go completely wild in their creative choices. We speak of things giving us freedom. Household appliances, for example, give us plenty of freedom from our routine chores. But by extension, we can speak about anything that supplies additional energy to our efforts. These things that give us freedom are doing routine tasks or are making the tasks we must perform more efficient. Does it mean that children must follow rules up to a certain age only? Say for instance, until they are 18? Then they are free to do whatever they want, skipping classes, missing tutorials, drug use, etc. Even primary school at 3, the children rush out of the school buildings, finally free from the confines of discipline. In Montessori schools, we hear other revealing attitudes about freedom. The children are supposed to work, but in a friendly environment. The kids are set free. This attitude reflects the fear of rules in modern parenting that rebounds from the strict discipline that they used to follow. The new parents or modern parents wish to raise their children differently. So the children are given freedom and are not burdened with responsibilities and rules. Similarly, many preparatory schools or kindergarten teachers are instructed to first follow the child's lead and let them be free. Actually, we as parents or as teachers are trying to set aside the tricks and violence mistook for discipline, so that we could see children reveal their true natures. But in reality, we see children who are out of control, abandoned to their own devices, leave us as frustrated parents and teachers who end up resorting to the same kind of discipline they vowed to avoid. There is a lot of confusion and conflict about the ideas of freedom and discipline, or maybe a misunderstanding of Montessori's discovery of the true nature of childhood. Conventional thinking about freedom and discipline defines them as external forces that are administered to children to mend their behavior. It is actually adults who discipline children and adults who give them freedom. The children are passive and the power and activity lays with the adult, the parent or the teacher. Conventional thinking about freedom and discipline doesn't work. In order to change this paradigm, we have to change our definitions of freedom and discipline. While bad habits will hold us back, useful habits free our concentration for non-routine tasks, creative tasks. A good habit then is something like our appliances or extra energy that gives us more freedom. It is said that one way to develop good habits is to follow a routine until it becomes a habit. Following that routine is a discipline. The concept of discipline. Discipline has a dictionary definition as a noun referring to a course of study, as a verb meaning to punish, and the term self-discipline. Self-discipline described as collection or regulation of oneself for the sake of improvement. Self-discipline may also be described in certain circumstances as restraint. When I exercise my freedom without restraint, I can lose my freedom, not by the imposition of control from some external agency, but because freedom is built upon a foundation of discipline. Some animals' habits are rather neat and others are more casual. For example, if we don't take out the garbage, it would mound up even to the point of restricting our movements. Therefore, there is a constant tension between freedom and discipline to keep what we have. Individually, the freedom we enjoy comes at the expense of maintaining some order, and that order is discipline. If we trace the English word discipline back to its Latin origins, we find that discipline comes from the Latin word disciplina, meaning teaching, instruction, and education. Similar words are disciple, meaning a student, pupil, and trainee. It implies that discipline is a process of coming to know, a process of learning and development. Montessori's concept of discipline is very different from conventional thinking. Montessori views discipline as a force within the child. It comes from within the child. It is not imposed externally. We have to come out of the confines of conventional ways of monitoring and disciplining children, silent or obedient. The child becomes passive and the adult's will dominates. Discipline should come up as an active force. This creates a sort of balance between education, discipline, and development. Education should not teach the child how to be passive and submissive. It must help the child become active and a responsible citizen. When discipline becomes a process of development, every child follows a predictable pattern of development shaped by his or her culture and thus achieves the goals of self-discipline. Often when discussing the idea is that discipline is external, how do we discipline children? How is discipline handled in schools and colleges? We believe that discipline is something a child is lacking and therefore must be imposed by an adult. This may not always be true. Montessori says that we cannot have freedom without discipline. They are like the two faces of a coin. One cannot exist without the other. By disciplining oneself, we move closer to being free. An individual is disciplined when one is a master of oneself, when one can control one's own impulses and wishes, when one can follow one's inner teacher. Only when an individual chooses under one's own impulses and not under the will of another. This happens when we allow a child to be free, guided by an adult with the interest of the child. We allow the child to discipline himself or herself. This idea scares many teachers and parents. The idea that a child can be self-disciplined and not be told what to do constantly is surely somewhat a scary notion. But the fact is that the greatest achievement of discipline is self-discipline. Importance of discipline in social life. Aristotle says, through discipline comes freedom. We can also understand discipline as having an internal form, an internal set of rules to follow. There exists a universal, inborn discipline within every human being, not given or taught by society. We usually ignore this notion or seldom think about it, but we clearly acknowledge it in nature. We know that every part of creation has a particular discipline or set of laws to follow. Every living thing has within it a set of developmental laws to follow. For example, a kidney bean seed will sprout out into beans only. A pup has to develop into a dog and not into a cat. Speaking truly, all of science is discovering the laws of nature, the laws of discipline of the universe. In Plato's Republic, he sought to describe a perfect individual by comparing it to the perfect society. A general rule for our society is that our freedom is limited by the freedom of others. My right to cough is or should be limited by another's right to limit their exposure to my germs. Socially exercising restraint is to allow someone else a freedom which is very important to exist socially. It might be thought of as a social market in that we hope to receive back a similar treatment. Socially and as a state, the freedom we have must also come at the expense of maintaining some order. Let us think for a while of a madman exercising a freedom to kill with his weapon. Would come at the loss of someone else losing the life or losing the right to life or liberty. So, for both the individuals and for an individual within the society, freedom has a cost. And as a part of that cost is maintaining a limit against which unrestrained freedom would limit freedom. In a society, laws help to define that limit, which is very important for a peaceful coexistence. Our social structure will fall apart without the discipline in social life. A society without proper discipline encourages the unsocial activities and bad behavior, such as violence and killings. Any nation cannot progress without a proper discipline and the law-abiding, disciplined citizens. Discipline is an essential part of our life and existence. In fact, without discipline, our life would cease. Discipline ensures smooth life without hindering individuals' liberty, who then coexists mutually and harmoniously. Without discipline, we cannot control our mind or our senses. Discipline works everywhere. It controls our morals and even our religion. There is no place on earth where discipline does not play a major role. Discipline is the order of society. It is the basis of the whole universe. The solar system is governed by certain laws to maintain perfect harmony and beauty. Without this order, there would be utter chaos. Discipline is the basic and foremost requirement of a civilized society. Citizens of a disciplined nation work with cooperation and unity for the upliftment of their society. Discipline is not only desirable but indispensable in social life. Whenever discipline and regulation of human conduct are absent, moral and material deterioration sets in. The strength of a nation lies in discipline. Discipline helps the societies and nations to make progress, fight external invasions, and maintain unity. Discipline is very important in social and political life of a nation. Without discipline, there can be no scientific advancements, no industrial or technological advancements. In totality, no development. Discipline is essential for personal growth and national prosperity. In order to exist freely and comfortably in societies, there should be a spirit of harmony, cooperation, and mutual coexistence among fellow human beings. All should follow the rules and regulations laid by law, decided mutually by them only. To sum up, Aristotle has rightly said, discipline is obedience to rules formed by the society for the good of all. Thank you, children. Hope you have enjoyed today's lesson.